I rarely see thrown weapons being used, and that's a shame. I'm a big fan of thrown weapons, but I still understand that this is not something you usually specialize in. Thrown weapons typically are used to start a fight or to finish off a fleeing enemy. All thrown weapon skills are easy difficulty skills, so it really won't hurt your character much to put a point or two into it, especially if you have no other ranged weapon. Before we look at the weapons, I strongly recommend checking out the 10 tweaks to customize combat in Pyramid 334, because it adds some nice things for thrown weapons, such as allowing all-out attack strong, committed attack strong, and defensive attack, and letting you add distance moved before the throw to the range. Let's take a look at the weapon table in GURPS Low-Tech and explore the differences between all the different specialties. Thrown weapon axe mace covers many axes and maces that can be used in melee, but there is a new arrival here as well, the large Hangamanga. In melee, it is treated as an axe at -2 to skill. At TL2, Hangamangas are made of soft iron and may bend on impact. Roll 1d after a throw. On 1, 2 or 3, the weapon bends and is useless. Straightening it takes 10 seconds and an armory +3 roll. Ignore this rule for steel weapons at TL3 or higher. Most of the weapons in this category deal good damage, which can be crushing or cutting, but do not have a good range. They're also heavy, meaning that you probably won't carry many of them. Thrown weapon dart only has one weapon on the table, the throwing dart. Damage isn't impressive, but this weapon is light and has one of the longest ranges among all thrown weapons. GURPS Martial Arts has another throwing dart, the plumbata. If a thrown plumbata hits, it becomes useless except as a baton until straightened. Should it strike a non-metallic shield, deliberately or on a block, it will stick and deform, penalizing shield skill, -1 for any plumbata at all, -2 if total projectile weight is at least half shield weight, or -4 if total weight equals or exceeds shield weight. Removing each plumbata requires a ready, maneuver and a strength roll at a penalty equal to its damage roll. In either case, unbending the head requires a free hand and foot, and takes 3 ready maneuvers and a strength roll. Now this is an interesting weapon. Thrown weapon disc is a specialty that doesn't exist in GURPS basic set. It was introduced in GURPS Low-Tech and I believe in some other books as well, I think in GURPS Fantasy. It only covers 2 moderately heavy weapons, the discus and the chakram. They deal decent damage and have a very long range, much longer than even the darts. Plus, you definitely get some style points for using these weapons. Imagine playing a discobolus. Thrown weapon Harpoon covers only one weapon, the Harpoon. It can be used as a heavy spear with reach 1 and 2 at -2 in melee. It deals huge impaling damage, but is heavy and has a short range. However, it is tethered. The Harpoon requires a ready maneuver and a successful strength roll to pull out. If you fail, you may try again next turn. It does half the damage coming out that it did going in. A harpooned victim can move but no farther than the tether's length. To go further, he must win a quick contest of strength to pull the tether out of your hands. He might have to beat strength 50 or even higher to escape if the tether is made of thick rope and tied securely to something solid, for example a ship. But how long is the tether? I have no idea. Thrown weapon knife is another quite large weapon category that has many familiar weapons, including the sai that isn't actually a knife. Small throwing knife and large throwing knife can be used in melee as small knife and large knife respectively, at -2 to skill. The Hangamanga is treated as a large knife in melee at -2 to skill, and just like its large counterpart in the thrown weapon axe mace table, might bend at TL2. Thrown knives deal low damage, aside from the Hangamanga that deals swing damage instead of thrust. Accuracy is also low, and so is range. However, weight and costs are low too, so you can carry many of these weapons, and carrying a knife with you is always nice. Thrown weapon Shuriken takes thrown knives to the extreme. Damage is even lower, accuracy is slightly higher, and range is short. However, weight and cost are so low that you can literally buy 100 of them. They also can be used to scratch in melee with dexterity, brawling or karate, and if you take the Razor Kicks perk, then you will be able to scratch with kicks as well. I love ninjas, so I have a soft spot for the shurikens. Thrown weapon Spear covers, well, spears. Both the spear and the javelin can be used normally in melee. They deal decent damage, have a surprisingly high accuracy, decent range, but you probably won't carry many of them. The text also hides another weapon, the pilum. The pilum acts like a spear but deforms when it hits the shield, using the same rules as plumbata. You'll probably notice that both the spear and the javelin have two stat lines each, a normal one and one with a thong. What does it mean? It refers to the thong throwing technique on page 13 of GURPS Low-Tech that lets you increase range and accuracy by imparting spin to the spear. That's pretty cool. Thrown weapon Stick covers only two weapons, the throwing stick and the boomerang. And no, the boomerang does not return to the user, but the book says that the GM may make an exception for characters with a throwing art skill. Both of these weapons act like batons in melee. They deal decent damage, are light and cheap, and have huge range. Did you think that a discus has long range? Think again. Well, the name of the skill might sound unattractive, it's just a stick. This is actually a good weapon category if you want a throwing weapon. But that's not all. GURPS Low-Tech Companion 2 has a box that describes what stats and skills you should use when throwing weapons that are not designed for that. And even lets you buy off the skill penalty with a technique. It also suggests a new skill, thrown weapon Sword. Swords are thrown point first, and they actually might deal decent damage, but range will be low. And do you remember how much swords cost? Are you filthy rich? Pyramid 3 118 and the recently released Shields Up have another new skill that is only available to those with Weapon Master Shield. Thrown Weapon Shield. Thrown shields deal decent damage, but do you really want to relieve yourself of your shield? By the way, if you do not have this skill, then you throw shields with a thrown weapon disc skill, but at a penalty. Things that do not have their own skills, such as stones, grenades, flasks, etc., are thrown with a generic throwing skill. It's actually a very useful skill because fantasy games usually are full of various airborne poisons and alchemical grenades that can be used with this skill. Dropping heavy objects on enemies while flying is done with a dropping skill. This is one of those skills that make you raise an eyebrow when you read GURPS basic set for the first time. A skill for what? Then there's the cinematic throwing art skill that makes all other throwing weapon skills unnecessary. It allows throwing literally anything you can lift and gives a huge bonus to damage. Remember the card throwing guy from City Hunter? That's throwing art. Finally, I would like to point out two advantages. Heroic Thrower from Pyramid 389 is an analog of Heroic Archer or Gunslinger, but for thrown weapons. Super Throw from GURPS Supers increases your range and damage with throws. And that's it. There are many throwing weapons in GURPS, but few of them have any special rules. Using thrown weapons usually is easy and intuitive, so do not be scared of putting a point or two into the thrown weapon skill. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.